Everyone, the musical stylings of Steve Fowler. How fun was that? We did that for the Elementary Tech Day. Who knew he had that skill? It is now, through contract, officially been added to his job description. Hey everybody, welcome to the Tech Day. It's great to have you. I hope you're all excited for a day of learning and discussion and fun new facts and investigation. And I just want to step through a couple slides and then hand you over to our keynote speaker, because I'm very excited here. We got to start with a little bit of thanks, right? So Jessica Cook, where are you? Jessica Cook in the back was instrumental in putting this day together, combining the wellness into the tech. Everybody please give Jessica a big round of applause. When you see her, please give her a big hug. All right, also, presenters and facilitators. I think I underemphasize this. Look at all these names, right? Forget the formatting error, but look at all the names, right? So everybody who's presenting a session, stand up, please. Please, come on. Look at all these names. Stand up if this is your name. Right, so these are your peers who have volunteered their time to share with you something they're passionate about and how they can use technology to enhance learning and make learning happen where without the technology, maybe it wouldn't, right? So if you see them, even if you didn't go to their session, please, so thanks to your peers. And don't forget to ask them about the awesome prizes they got so that next year when I ask you if you want to present, you may say, okay, so farfromblogging.com, shameless plug. It's my blog. I think you should all read it. It's a daily glimpse at something technological. If you're ever interested in what's doing with tech, this is a good place to start. Session 1, 2, and 3, I hope you all had a chance to look it over, but you'll notice that sessions 2 and 3 are after lunch, right? So during lunch, after session 1, talk with each other and say, hey, you know what I went to? And, share it up. Some new things this year, right? So we're incorporating students. Students, take a stand. Students, take a stand. These are some of our seniors. They're going to be doing a panel later. I'm very excited to see how that turns out. They're taking their day off to be with us, to share with you what technology means to them and their learning here at Mount Lebanon. So I think that's fairly admirable, and I'm going to reward them heavily. Some other things. I want you to focus today, please, on the various types of technology that we have at use for our students in our different classrooms, in our different curricular areas, right? It's this notion of authentic learning. These students are not stuck to one screen all day long. They have maybe in the high school, I think we measured like 8 screens that they look at. TVs, short-throw projectors with smart boards, Chromebooks, laptops, iPads, Macs, okay? The point of it being that if we can make a learning environment that's authentic to the technology they have after school, then that will serve them well 24 hours a day and beyond Mount Lebanon. All right, so our focus on educational technology is authentic learning and utilizing real-world technology and the technology they already have in their pockets. So as you learn things today, think about BYOT. Think about the students that have a cell phone or an iPhone or an Android, whatever that other phone is called, in their pocket, right? And how can that be used just for 5 minutes for a simple exercise, right? Maybe just looking something up. And you don't need to spend the whole class walking down to the lab to do it. So I encourage you to think about BYOT opportunities for your students. Session format. Last year, I don't know if you remember, we milled around a little bit. We got negative feedback. I want you to know that we respond to feedback, okay? So we have start and end times for our sessions today, and it's like a conference, all right? So pick the one you want to go to and show up and give it a listen, and if you got it, and if it's not doing, and you want to wander around, I'm not locking the doors. But it is not a general mill-around session like it was last year, because the responses I got were that you didn't like that. So if you like this, please respond. Also new this year, I want to talk just a little bit about Google. You've all heard me thumping my chest about Google because we're investing full hardcore into it. We might even be at Gmail next fall. Just going to tease that out there. But a lot of things have happened with Google that should be allowing us now to take the tools that Google gives us and put them into our classroom and into our students' learning experience, okay? It's not just for organizing your files anymore, okay? There are a number of Google Classroom sessions at Google Communities, Google Hangouts. Check the session list. There are a lot of Google tools that can be used directly for student learning. And I encourage you to experiment with them. I think you'll find, especially with Google Classroom, that these are not These are not high learning curve type applications. These are things that actually, once you experiment with them, you'll find that it actually saves you time. And whoa, I can't believe I can do this now. So please experiment. That's what today is for. Learn and explore and ask questions and challenge yourselves to think about how you might do something differently with this technology that would affect a different learning outcome. Okay? Don't just digitize what you already do. Nobody's asking for that. It's a honor. So we have trusted domains, which allows for Google Classrooms. You all see this hashtag down here, TechWellLebo. If you're tweeting, in addition to Lebo Proud, TechWellLebo is the hashtag of the day. If you search it, you'll find some of the tweets from the elementary day we did a month ago. I just wanted to highlight we have a new TV system here at the high school and at the other 9 schools. It's called Safari Montage. It's going to be in room C303. I encourage you to check it out if you've got a spot. At the end of the day, I also want to, you're all going to be getting together by departments. And this is because feedback has said over the years you like getting together by departments. Apparently you like each other. So we're giving you that time at the end of the day to gel and talk about what you've learned and maybe what you could bring to your curricular area. But there are 2 things I'm asking of you, and they are 2 surveys. So one is a internal survey. You'll see the link, and your room facilitator will have this link as well. It's some feedback, and it's an effort. There's a final question on there I just wanted to spend a minute talking about that asks you, if you had unlimited resources, what would you do with what you learned today over the course of this year? Because overwhelmingly, the feedback we get is that it's a one and done. This is a great day, but tomorrow you're back to school. So it's great to learn it, but I got to get back to the way I've always been doing it. So the final question on this survey is designed to give us triggers through which we can keep coming back to you for the rest of the year. So you have this great idea for a project. If only I had 600 Chromebooks, okay? I'm pretty sure Michael Otti, where are you? You're going to be filling this out for Chromebooks. I know it, right? And what would you do with them? And let me come back to you in a week or 2 weeks or a month and throughout the course of the year and maybe develop some of these projects into real working things so that it's not just this one day, that this day was just the spark that led to something that happened over the course of the year. So please take the survey. At the end of the survey is a second survey. I know I'm surveying the heck out of you, but it should all fit in 15, 20 minutes, called the Bright Bites Survey. The Bright Bites Survey is backed by research. It is going to be given to all teachers, all students, all parents, students in grades 3 and up, all parents, about how we're using technology in our schools, how effectively we're using it, and where we could do better. And the suggestions that they're going to give us for how we can do better are based in research, and it's a really exciting survey. But it's only going to be meaningful if we get enough responses from all y'all, or yins. So if you could please fill out the survey at the end, there's a link at the end of the first survey to the second survey. Please just spend 15 minutes at the end of your day filling out the survey. It'll be really important to us if you do that. It's election day. How many have already voted? Wow, you guys are early risers. I'm voting after, so please make sure you vote today. I believe there's some school board positions also up. And now I want to introduce our keynote speaker. So Molly asked that I not be effluent in my introduction because she has something cleverly designed where she's going to introduce herself. We know Molly through following her on my PLN. How many know what a PLN is? All right, see, more readers are far from blogging. Professional Learning Network, you all knew what it was. You just didn't know the cool acronym for it. Molly is a GAFer, as I like to say, a Google Apps for Education. She was a teacher for a long time and a technology integrator for a long time. And now she has just embarked on full-time technology integration consulting with EdTech team. And we are fortunate to have her. And I am very excited to hear her speak. And don't forget that there is a continuation of her talk immediately after this in, I think, 308. If you have follow-up questions and you want to just have a more informal conversation with her. I also see Jess Dembski. Jess is going to be running around filming today for one of her for a project that she's doing with a TV studio. So if you see her, she's legit. She's wearing Mount Lebanon apparel. She doesn't have a press pass, but if you could help her out with whatever interviews or shots she wants to get, it's going to be a nice product when she's done with it, I know. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Molly. She is going to figure out how to switch presentations on a Mac because Macs freak me out. But if we could welcome... Oh, wait, I have one more announcement. Depression and Anxiety Sessions 1 and 2 have been moved to 2 and 3. Is that right, Jess? Yeah. Sorry. Okay. I'll update that on the Google Doc. But, Molly, please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Happy day off of school for the students, right? Not for us. All right, let me just get in here a little bit first. All right, good morning. You're very spread out with nobody in the middle. It's all right. Like Chris said, my name is Molly Schrader, and I am thrilled to be here working with you today to share a little bit this morning and then really continue with a little bit of training and conversation and discussion about kind of this new age of learning. So to introduce myself today, in the spirit of our technology and wellness initiative today, I thought I would introduce myself along with some of the activities that I like to do. So first off, I was born in Colorado. I grew up there, went to high school all the way through there, so I am an avid skier. There is not a better way for me to spend a day than out in the mountains. And so that is where I was originally from. I ended up moving to Minneapolis, Minnesota when I went to college. I went to a small college in which I played volleyball and tennis there and studied elementary education. So after I was at this small school in Minnesota, everybody was moving up to Minneapolis, and I decided that sounded fun as well, so I ended up in Minneapolis. And I ended up teaching, and I taught 4th and 5th grade for about 11 years in 2 different school districts, private and public. And when I was there, when I went to my very first year of teaching, the person that I was co-teaching with was also the technology person for the entire school. So in 1998, my very first year of teaching, all of my 5th graders had email, which was a really big deal for the students to have it at that point. I had only gotten a couple of years before. So I ended up really implementing technology in my classroom. I was kind of the person that piloted a lot of things. And so what they did is they asked me to come up to the district office and be a technology integration specialist. So I did that, and the teachers became my students. And I loved the ripple effect that I was able to have when I was working with teachers and figuring out what some of the greatest things were to do with technology, and how do we move this one-to-one Chromebooks initiative that we have forward, and how do I help filter out some of that stuff that is just cool for a day and then not useful for school. So that was one of my favorite things. I ended up as a Google certified teacher in about 2008. And Google certified teachers, they go to a Google Teacher Academy, but I met my people. I met my yes people. I met the people that I was really excited about integrating things and pushing the envelope. It was as if we all had won this sort of golden ticket and now had this magic wand that we really were going to be helping and change what learning meant for students in their classrooms. So that was a really instrumental piece for me, is when I did that. And just recently in June, I just left my school district, and I ended up taking a full-time position, which I'd been working with for the last about 4 years, with the ed tech team, in which what we do is we do Google Apps for Education training, future-ready schools training, emerging technology and trends training with schools all over the world. And what the most important and exciting thing for me is that I really do believe that I have this ripple effect with students still in the classroom, where we get to help sort of inspire each other and encourage each other. And I'm going to try to take what I've learned from other schools and in my classroom and with all these different places and try to start a conversation with you here in Mount Lebanon about where are we with learning right now and what is this day about? So these days, I find myself running a little bit more. My new favorite pastime is golfing, and I always will still be a skier. So the reality is that we're here to learn today. You're not here to just hear about all my activities that I like to do, but we are here to learn. And we're here to talk about this digital age of learning. And we're here to engage in the process that we ask our students to do every day. Learn. A lot of the times, us as teachers, we don't find ourselves in that position of learning as much as we are sort of instructing or creating opportunities for students. And so I'm really excited to be here today to sort of help further that conversation. So what are we going to do today and this morning? We are going to be talking about technology, digital tools, best practices in the classroom, and all the different ways that these kind of come together. So I believe that we are here today to learn how to engage students. These guys sitting in the front row are your best crap detector, right? Of any keynote that you're giving, right? These are the ones that we're talking about today. We really want to engage the students. And when you start talking about digital tools and technology, we really need to talk about how do we prioritize what's valuable? How do we build efficiency into our classrooms with using these tools by not just adding one new cool thing? Okay? Also, I want to talk about this idea of moonshots. And I want each of us in this room to be able to create moonshots, and I want each of the students to have these moonshots. And I really, really think that today we need a bias towards action. We need to not just sit here and learn and not just sit here and think about how it's going to go and figure out exactly what the plan is going to be, but I want us to be out there experimenting and trying and having a bias towards action. So these are our thoughts today. Think in your head, what are we here to do? We're here to engage the students, prioritize the valuable, to create some efficiencies, to create moonshots, and have a bias towards action. My thought is that if we can create moonshot thinkers that are confidently operating in beta, that we can really change what it means to learn in our classrooms. So let's explore that idea. So you know that I'm a Google certified teacher. I can't remember what Chris called me, a gaffy, a gaffer. Some people say gafe, some people say gaffe, some people say gafy. It really, it's whatever you're into. But I do spend a lot of time learning about Google Apps for Education, talking about Google Apps for Education, and really trying to keep up in this world. So I'm always interested in what their new latest and greatest things are. So has anybody seen this? Google Knows. It's in beta. In beta means that it's just sort of rolling out. They want to kind of see how it works and then get some feedback, where you could interact with your technology devices and smell them. Those of you who are talking, like, are you kidding? This was released April 1st on April Fool's Day. And Google always, across all of their departments, always launches some joke products that look incredibly real. But if somebody was going to launch something where we could actually smell and interface with our technology that way, it'd probably be Google, because they're always sort of pushing the envelope. So we have things like Google Glass that has recently been retired, but they had this idea where they said, you know what, a lot of people these days are finding this device in front of their faces, and they're not interacting with people as well, or they're crashing into each other because they're looking at texting and walking. So what if we removed the device from the face, but still had people connected so they could see just a little bit of notifications and directions and texts and take pictures? So it's these things that are kind of seem like realistic fiction, but are actually practically happening in our life. In fact, Google Glass has already been retired and they're moving on. We have things like the Google self-driving car. Okay? And I just saw in the news this morning that by 2019, all cars will probably have a responsive brake system, where if you're too close to a car in front of it, it will automatically start braking and slowing you down. So these kinds of things are actually rolling into our world. They're becoming not just fiction, but realistic fiction. Google's latest project, Project Wing, is talking about drones, drone delivery. But not like, oh my gosh, my Amazon delivery of 2 days is too slow, can it please come by drone? Which is actually they're thinking about. But Project Wing is about getting supplies and medicine to places that otherwise we couldn't get to with roads. So, think of just the earthquake that just happened, and getting supplies into places that we couldn't otherwise do it. So these are sort of these things that Google's launching, and they're not exactly sure how they're gonna work out. In fact, I will be talking today a lot about Google Cardboard. Google Cardboard is one of Google's new projects where they said, oh, the Oculus Rift virtual reality system that's $500, we think we could actually build it out of cardboard. And I just put it in front of the students' faces over here, and every single jaw dropped as they put this on. So Google's pushing the envelope. They're always looking at new things. And they have this philosophy. And the philosophy is that you launch early, and then you iterate, you make changes, you ask yourself, how did that go? Did that help engage students? Was that something really valuable? Should we continue to do it, or should we change what's been going on? And I think that this is a great philosophy for us as teachers, that we should be able to launch things early, and then we should iterate. So what does living in beta, right? This idea of introducing something, seeing how it's going, getting feedback to make changes, how does that look in our classrooms? Well, let's take a look at that. When we talk about engaging our students, I want you to put yourself in a classroom. So think about school. How many of you thought of the school that you went to, where you were the learner? Oh, not very many people, or you're not raising your hand. How many of you thought of the desk that these students are sitting in, the students in your classroom right now? Those two environments are very different. They're different for me. The classroom that I sat in at Middle Aspen Elementary School, new cute bowl cut, earrings I probably made. The classroom that I sat in is very different than the classroom that these seniors have sat in. And we want it to be. We want it to be a relevant place that they are. So imagine this. Imagine that you walk into earth science class, and the teacher says something like, well, in class today, in this entire course that we're going to be taking, there's going to be one test, and there's only going to be one question on that test. This girl would have looked at her friends and been like, yep, I'm going to rock this. If I know the question and there's only one question, I'm going to do great. But if you pose a question something like, well, there was an earthquake in San Francisco. I want you to figure out what type of earthquake it was. I want you to do a news report to the people, and then I want you to meet with the engineers and the physicists and all the people in the community and figure out how you can help this community withstand an earthquake like this, or worse, for the next time. We're asking the students not to find an answer, but we're asking them to create one. We're giving them those real-world problems, the project-based learning, the places that they can engage and that they can find relevance. We all know that a process of learning does not end with an assessment. That is not a box that we can check and say, learning is done. Facts and knowledge and things that we need to just, check off the list, yeah. But we know that the process of learning is about thinking, it's about making, and then it's about improving. It's about finding that place that worked really well and saying, gosh, I've learned this. But I read yesterday somewhere that we all know the more we know, the less we actually know. When we do our Google Apps for Education summits, we always ask the teachers as they walk into the conference, how would you rate your confidence of your use of technology in Google Apps for Education? And it's usually a lot of 3s and 4s, and people are like, yeah, I feel pretty good. They come to a 2-day conference with us, and they find out all the amazing opportunities of things that you can do with Google Apps. And almost every single time when we ask people at the end, how do you feel, how do you rate your confidence in the ways that you're using Google Apps for Education? It's lower. They didn't know what they didn't know. And I think that we need to do that too, that if you end your learning, your biggest project with another question, that's exactly what we wanted. That's the process of learning. It's a process, and we want to make sure that we're asking kids the kinds of questions that allow them to go through a process of learning and get to the end and have a new question that leads them into new learning. We all know that each of the students come into our classrooms at point A. Each of you have come into this day of technology training at point A. Your point A is completely different than the person that's sitting next to you. All we want to do today, all you want to do in your classrooms is get your students to point B. Whatever their point B is, the process of learning. It's like at the London Tube, we're on the ground right before you get onto the tube, it says mind the gap. Let's mind the gap. Let's pay attention to the space in between point A and point B, where the students get to be in the process of learning. And we get to see their aha moments and their discovery. In fact, my friend Ramsey Musalam lives in San Francisco, and he has found some sort of little node that he's been, willingly, the students are willing and the parents, to put on the student's head, and he's trying to document that aha moment of learning, that place where students finally get it, and they look up and they're like, whoa. And he wants to sort of research that, because that's an engaging part for the students, is when we pay attention to the learning that happens in the classroom. As teachers, you get to model living in beta to the students. We should model living in beta. And what does that mean? That means that every single time that the kids walk out of the class, behind the scenes, not in front of them, you ask yourself, how did that go? What would I do differently? What could I improve? And you guys are middle school and high school teachers. And so a lot of you get to teach potentially the same lesson to 2 groups of people. And so you can make improvements, you can make iterations. The kids are just guinea pigs, right? We're just trying things out and we're iterating and we're making improvements. And that's okay. So when I was in my school district, just in Minneapolis, we rolled out Chromebooks really early. And what happened is we put them in a 4th grade classroom and a 9th grade classroom. And a lot of people from around the cities, around Minneapolis and St. Paul, around the state of Minnesota, and even regionally in the Midwest came and saw us. And they said, we really want to see what Chromebooks looks like in a 4th grade classroom. We said, come on in. So I'd call this teacher, and all the adults would stand in the back, and the teacher would be introducing the lesson. And she would be telling the kids what they were going to be doing with their Chromebooks today. And on this one particular day, I had about six adults with me. And we went in, and the teacher was talking all about what they were going to do. And as she went to start explaining the lesson, this happened. You ever seen that? Right? Even cheekier, right? Where it says, oh, snap, something's gone wrong. And you're in the middle of the lesson, and you have 6 adults in the background, and all of your students are there. And then Google gets really funny, and they're like, he's dead, Jim. This is an important moment of learning. For you as the teacher, for the students, for the adults. And at this point in the lesson, the adults' body language, their shoulders went up, their knees went down, they looked over at me, and they were like, this isn't going very well. Should we leave and come back another day? And at that point as a teacher, you have a decision to make. A lot of us feel like this.
Anybody out there? No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? You gotta be kidding me. Well, that's it.
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He said he can fix it.
Right? So we get at this moment and we're stuck and we feel like we are just going to scream for help, and we want to make sure that everybody knows that technology and I don't get along very well. There are a lot of people that would say that. But what happened in this classroom was awesome. When we rolled out the Chromebooks to the students, we said, will you help us understand these devices? Will you help us learn how we can better use these in the classroom? And so it was, the students, the 4th graders, were a community of problem solvers. They knew they were part of the solution. And so literally in like perfect unison, I didn't plan it, everything in the back, all the students at one time were like, hey, Mrs. Purdy, refresh. Which of course, as you know, when you're using Google Apps for Education or something with technology, a lot of the times that refresh button solves exactly what you needed to solve. And in this case, it did. But the important lesson was what happened in that moment, and what happened with the students, and how invested the kids felt, and that it wasn't the teacher and what something was going wrong with her, but they were going to solve things together. And so I think that that's what launching early and iterating can be. I think us being examples of living in beta and trying something and seeing how things are going to go, along with the students, empowers them. It gives them a voice. It gives them some agency in what you're doing in the classroom. What I'd like you to do is I'd like everybody to stand up. So put your devices down and your writing utensils. You don't have to take any notes on this. Okay, so everybody stand up. And I'm going to show you just a few things right now. Okay? So the first thing I'd like to introduce you to is a giant. Okay, now this giant, this is what he looks like and what he does. On the count of 3, show me your best giant. 1, 2, 3. That was sort of quiet, but it is 8:45, so we're going to do that next. Okay, so this is our giant. Our second introduction, as I would like to show you, is our wizard. Our wizard looks like this. Okay, on 3, your best wizard. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. Third one, I'd like you to introduce you to is our elf, okay? Our elf looks like this. Me, me, me. Okay? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Me, me, me. Okay, so we've got our giant, we've got our wizard, and our elf. Does anybody know what we're doing? Okay. I would like you, first off, to know that when I need you back, I'm going to just raise my hand. If you see my hand raised, you raise your hand and stop talking and look back at me. Deal? Teacher to teacher, deal? Deal. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a little game. You are going to need to find a partner. Look at that person, find a partner, and you are going to go back to back with your partner. Now look at me first. Look at me first. Your goal of this game is on 3. I am going to say 1, 2, 3, go. On go, you're going to turn around and either be a giant, a wizard, or an elf, me, me, me. And your goal is to get the exact same as the person that you're with. Okay, back to back. Everybody find a partner, back to back. Back to back. Look around. Does anybody need a partner? Raise your hand. It's all good. Now, nobody start doing any like Morse code with their butt right now. I know you're out there. Okay, back to back. Okay, remember, giant, wizard, or elf, the goal is to get the same thing. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, I see some high fives out there. Okay. Now that one was just practice, okay? So you did well. Now, I want you to turn around again. Turn around. Back to back. Now you're thinking, should I do the same thing? Is my partner gonna do the same thing? Should we go completely opposite? Right? No Morse code here. If you get it correct, stay standing. If you get it incorrect, sit down. If you get the same, stay standing. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. All right, we've got a few standing. Incredible. All right, back to back, those of you who are still standing. Back to back. Now is the big question. Do we stay the same? Do we change different? What do we do? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, everybody give a round of applause to the people still standing. Excellent job. And to you all. Now, why do we do something like that in the middle of a keynote, right? I didn't even have to raise my hand, right? The goal is we want to engage students. We want to engage you in just 90 seconds, 2 minutes. You stood up, you got some activity, everybody laughed. We have to remember that that's a huge part of us being in our classroom, right? Is that after a sitting for 45 minutes, we know that that's a really hard thing to do. And a lot of the times we ask our students, so in what ways can we use all the resources you have for you today? The wellness, the technology, just simple fun things like smiling and laughing with somebody that you probably haven't laughed with yet today. It's important that we engage our students. However, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of technology, there's a lot of different types of phones, there's all these tablets, there's new computers, there's always updates. And it's really hard to use these digital tools, but also to prioritize the things that we need to do, the valuable things. And so what I want to do is start thinking about how in the world there's no way that we as teachers can keep up, because this is how we feel a lot of the time.
Even newer. Everything else is obsolete.
Oh, wait. 4D TV? Stupid.
You got the wrong TV, silly head.
The new buyback program. You buy it now.
Right? So we always feel like we're trying to keep up, and there's no way we're going to keep up and know absolutely everything about everything. That's not our role as teachers anymore. Our role as teachers is to prioritize the valuable questions and the activities and the projects and allow technology and the things that are around us, the resources around us, to be helpful to guide students through that. So if we look again at Google as an example, how do we keep up? How do they keep up with all their innovations and iterations? What's going on? Well, Slate Magazine actually did an entire article about all the things that Google did but failed. So things like Google Reader and iGoogle and Google Buzz and Google Desktop and all these things that Google launched and didn't work. They didn't go into mainstream. They never made it out of beta. And in fact, when the article was written, they even had the grave dug for Google Glass. They were making those predictions. So as Larry and Sergey look at this, they could be like, oh my gosh, Google is a failing company. Somebody made a scrollable website of all of our failures. What does that make us feel? Well, what they said is that's exactly what our company's about. That's exactly our innovation, is iteration. That we believe that we're going to launch something, and if it works, we're going to keep it going, and if it doesn't work, we might try to stop it. And so as teachers, we have to make room for innovation in our classroom. We have to make room for some of these new things that are coming along. And the reality is that we all have, or should have, an educational graveyard. So what's written on those tombstones of your classroom or of your school district? At my school district, last year, we got to write the overhead projector. It was something that we no longer use. So whether it's a technology device, whether it's a pedagogy, whether it's that one favorite lesson or unit that you cannot give up, even though it probably shouldn't be in your curriculum anymore, we all need to have this place where we can say with confidence, I'm retiring that and I'm making room for innovation in my classroom. So you've had the Chromebooks or you've had digital learning and Google Apps for Education for a little while now, and it's time to stop sort of just playing, and we really want to prioritize what we're doing with these devices. So when I introduced Chromebooks to a lot of my teachers, we were one-to-one, almost 3rd grade through 12th grade. I talked to them a lot about this, about using the devices for different ways. So content, collaboration, and creation. And the first thing that I told them to do is play. Get out there, try some new things, have the students play with these devices. Put them in an environment where the very first thing you're not doing with it is something that's a gradable, for your summative assessments. Get in there and experiment and play a little with them. But then we want to move into some ways that we can start thinking about content. The way that you and I and the students consume content has changed dramatically. In fact, the other day I was with a group of seniors and I asked them, how do you get your news? And it was so fascinating because I asked them, I was more interested, like, are you reading the newspaper? Are you reading online? Do you find things out via Twitter? And through the conversation, it was all social media, but they did not follow a specific newspaper. They were following journalists. So their Twitter feed or a lot of their social media feeds were things that they had made themselves. So the ways that students are consuming content and finding things are different. The way you are doing it. How many of you have ever learned how to do something on YouTube? Yeah, it's the second most used search engine. And so where we get our content has changed. So we need to look into that. Does anybody know who this is? Sir Ken Robinson. And he has one of the most popular TED Talks, and every single time I do this presentation, I go online and I see how many people have watched his TED Talk. It's one of the most popular. 35 million. I had to up it by 3 million from 3 weeks ago. And now that you all go watch it, I'll probably get to update it as well. It's a fantastic TED Talk about how schools have killed creativity. But the reality is that Sir Ken Robinson has written a lot of books, and he has not sold anywhere close to 35 million books. Because video is the way we're consuming content these days. It's an anytime, anywhere place that we can go and get snippets of learning. When you look at a YouTube video, what's the very first thing you look at? How long is this? Right? If it's 5 minutes, that's a serious commitment of my time. So we are in this place where video is a place that we can get content, but we have to also look at the ways that we're streaming it and delivering it. At my school district, we decided to use that Khan Academy type of approach, and we collaborated with all the teachers through K-12, and we created our own E-Academy, which were 3 to 5 minute lessons of all the different content in our entire curriculum. It was Edina teachers introducing themselves, saying, hey, I want to talk about fractions. And anybody could use this at any time, anywhere. Because the learning didn't necessarily have to happen all at the exact same time in front of a teacher. Now the learning was happening a lot of different places, and it could happen with a lot of other people. Our biggest learning from this was that the biggest use of the E-Academy was our after-school program, which was a lot of our high-needs kids that didn't have parents that were helping them to do homework, and so now they had the teachers helping them to do their homework. And so it was a really fun thing. So the ways we consume content, as Chris was talking about your personal learning network, professional development doesn't have to happen on a day like today. It can happen in 5 minutes between sessions. It could happen 5 minutes as you're waiting, you know, for a meeting to start. You can open up things like Twitter. You can find things on YouTube. You should all be following, oh, I don't even have it up here. Edutopia is a great place to start. So the ways we consume content has changed. When I talk about content in my classroom and I talk about these digital tools, a lot of the times I ask teachers to say, can you make a commitment to a paperless classroom? And it's like, oh, that raises some anxiety. Some of you are looking at each other like, nope. But if I asked for you to redefine paperless to less paper, is that something that we could do? Because paper's not dead. What we're going to be doing in the classroom is still alive, some of it, but we need to transition it into a less paper environment, because this video helps us to understand that paper is not dead.
Emma. Huh? Emma. Em?
I'm so sorry. Hold on. I just had a little alert that came up. Sorry.
Emma. Huh? Emma. Emma.
Just a little toilet paper to remind us that paper's not going to be dead. So when we talk about these ways of using technology in the classroom, we have to frame it with a little perspective as well. So the thing is that we can't stop at content. When we're talking about a paperless classroom, we can't stop at that. We have to also engage with the students, with organizations, with authors, with astronauts, with students in other schools outside of our classroom walls. So when we think about collaboration, these digital tools, Google Apps for Education, Chromebooks, tablets, your phone, really do allow us to engage with people outside of our classroom wall. In fact, somebody told me one time that if you were going to get a job at Google these days, one of the questions that they would ask is, tell me about the last 3 internationally collaborative projects that you've been a part of. And I thought about that, and I thought about my 5th graders, and I was like, wow, I have the tools available to do internationally collaborative projects, but am I doing that? So the lesson for the day in my classroom was to flip a coin 25 times. So we flipped coins 25 times, tallied whether they got heads or tails, and then we talked about fractions, decimals, percents, we talked about probability. And at the very end of the lesson, it talked about the validity of the data. Could we write to the local newspaper and say, when you flip a coin, you are 42% of the time going to get heads? And it encouraged the conversation that we should probably ask more people, that we could see if more people flipped coins, then we could probably, get those people, we could get more data. So what we did is we used Google Forms. How many of you used a Google Form before? Where you can ask survey data, and it collects all the survey data into a spreadsheet. We said, hey, why don't we put together a Google form and we'll send it out to, you guys all bring in email addresses of somebody who lives outside of Minnesota. I'll use my Twitter, Google+, Facebook page and just ask people to flip a coin and report back to us. And they were super excited about this. So we went on and we made this Google form. And on the Google form we said, what city and state do you live in? And if you flipped a coin, did you get heads or tails? So we sent out the form, and all of a sudden, literally 30 seconds after we sent it out, somebody said, I don't live in the United States. Can I add my country? And the students were like, somebody from another country is filling this out? And all of a sudden, we started this conversation about currency and all the different countries that had come in, and we had the map out, and we got to plot out that this many people all over the world flipped a coin for us. didn't even really matter what the probability or the validity or fractions, decimals, and percents. We had an internationally collaborative project by flipping a coin. So some of the tools that we have, we just have to think differently. We have to ask a few different questions. The funniest part that came in too is about a day later after this was out, somebody said, I never carry change in my pocket anymore, but I have an app on my phone that I can flip a coin. Can I do that for you? So then the students were like, oh, we have to go in and add the question, is your coin real or virtual? So we were collecting all sorts of data that really helped the kids think. It was really fun. So when we think about the collaboration, there's a lot of tools out there that can add collaboration to our classroom, where we can start hearing from students who aren't always the ones that have their hands up, to creating conversations outside of our classroom walls with the community and with even thinking about the world. And then, of course, we can't stop at the collaboration. We really want the students to be creating. We don't want them to just be consumers of the information, but we want them to be contributors. We want them to contribute and publish and share. Our Chromebooks at our school district could not print. And we had this philosophy where we wanted them to publish online instead of printing. Could people still go to the computer labs and print a project every once in a while? But it changed the conversation in the audience, that it wasn't just going to be something that either went home in their Friday folder, went up on the school wall, but students had a digital portfolio that was accessible by a larger audience. And it was something that allowed the students to have a lot of pride and a lot of critique and a lot of self-reflection in the things that they were doing. So there's lots of digital storytelling apps and things out there. We can talk a lot about these in the session after if anybody wants to. But really, the Google Apps for Education give you the ability to have this, for the students to be creating and collaborating at the same time. So when we're thinking about content, collaboration, creation, and all these tools, we're wanting to prioritize the valuable, right? But I don't want it to scare you. I don't want you to be afraid of failure. Failure is just an expectation of learning. And so the reality is that we should be really worried if we're not trying something new. If you learn something today and we can't implement one new thing, that's the part where I really think that we are not changing our classrooms. Because the only expectation of you today is to be in beta. And that just means we want you to learn something. The only person I want you to compare yourself to, not the person that's sitting next to you or not the person that's presenting the session, is I want you to compare yourselves to the person that you were yesterday. And see if we can implement one new thing. And even just that philosophy of living in beta and just saying, I'm going to try something even though I'm not exactly sure how things are going to work out. So that's our goal, is to prioritize the valuable, to build in some efficiencies and really engage the students while we're doing that. I want to introduce you to this idea of moonshots. And I actually heard Chris talk about it, so I'm not sure if it's already baked into your culture here. But when I talk about moonshots, it actually comes from Google's Project X Lab. It's their very secret space where they try to solve the world's next big problem. So they try to have things like, they're trying to provide internet to the entire world by floating weather balloons in the air, in the stratosphere, and connecting all of them for internet to beam down to the world. They're doing Project Wing, which is the drones that are helping to deliver some of the supplies to areas that are in need. They were in charge of the self-driving car. What they're trying to do is solve the world's next big problems. And they call their thinking moonshot thinking. So here's a little video about moonshot thinking.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallet, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on the next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car. said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
Turn to somebody by you that'll listen to you and just share one thing that stood out in that video about moonshot thinking. So talk to somebody right now. Every time I watch that video, something new hits me. But the biggest thing that I think of after that is that's Richard Duval, and these are the guys that are in Google's Project X. And I ask myself, Richard Duval was the one with the gray shirt with the X, the orange X logo. And I thought, what if Richard Duval was one of my 5th graders? Would I have given him this opportunity to have moonshots, to think big like this? When they talk about moonshot thinking, they talk about thinking big. They talk about failure as an expectation. Richard Duval came and spoke to us one time and he said, failure is an expectation of my job. I'm just supposed to fail quickly. And it's not about just these little 10% increments or 10% improvements, but it's really about thinking, what's a 10x change? What's not one way that I could make something paperless, but what's a way that I could redefine or re-engage the students using this lesson, if we think big? And I think that when we can think about, have these moonshots as us, as teachers, but also that allow the students to have an opportunity in their day or in their year or in your course to have a moonshot, to have a real world problem or something that they're passionate about solving, then that could be something fun that we could introduce into the classroom. We have to prioritize the valuable so that we can leave room for innovation. There has to be this space in our day, in our course, in our curriculum. And so I want to tell you just about a few projects that were some moonshots that really implemented well into the classroom and really changed what it meant to be a student in those courses. And the first one is born out of this idea that at Google, everybody is hired to do their job for 80% of the time. And every single Googler, as they're called, has a 20% project. And so this is a little video about a 20% project.
Hello, guess where we work? Yes, we work at Google. I've worked there for 5 years, and I've worked on a bunch of different projects from that. But Google is a pretty big place, and we don't work on everything, so there's actually a lot of different stuff Google's doing that we don't know that much about. And we thought that was kind of lame, because we actually want to know about those things. So at Google, there's this thing called 20% time, where you can spend a part of your time working on something that you came up with. So we decided to run around Google, meeting different people, learning about different projects, and asking questions about all the stuff we're curious about. What's your code speak?
Code speak? I want to be able to go like this, and everything is in your language.
So this one broke, because I kept crashing it. Why do you still have that broken wing? Just as a souvenir. What's your favorite phone part? Now we're turning everything that we learned into a YouTube show and calling it Nat and Lo's 20% Project. A series about all the stuff we're curious about at Google. Ready to rock roll? We're gonna try to make these videos and post them every couple of weeks. And
So what Nat and Lo have done is they've decided their 20% project at Google was going to be find out all about the cool, innovative things that had been happening. It's just an idea that they're allowed space in their day, space in their job, in their week for innovation, for things that they're passionate about. And so a good friend of mine, Kevin Brookhauser, decided, I think that would be a cool philosophy for my classroom. So every single semester, Kevin Brookhauser has this 20-time project. And he actually wrote a book about it. It's available on Amazon. It's a fantastic book about this idea and this philosophy in the classroom. But what he does is he every year walks the students through what a 20% time, a passion project would be. And he believes it gives the students autonomy, he believes it helps them with mastery, and it gives them purpose. And every single semester, they have a video live streamed presentation of the students' 20% projects to the community, to the people that are watching online. I watch it every semester. It's really inspiring to go and see what seniors in high school would pick for their 20% project. What are the things that they're interested in? At my school district, we had a passion project day. Instead of streaming online, we set up the entire school, and each of the students had their little key, their little booth, and we invited people from all over the community, from all over the cities, a lot of different schools, to come and see what they'd done in their 20-time project. So these are these moonshot ideas that Kevin thought, wow, this would be an interesting idea to put it in the classroom. We have to prioritize the valuable so we can add time for innovation. This is Google's new project right now, and it involves Google Cardboard. So Google Cardboard is sort of the idea that Oculus, if you've heard of that, is a virtual reality goggle system that you can put on and experience the world. And what Google did is they said, well, we think that that's really cool, but using somebody's phone, what they already own in their pocket, we believe that we could build something similar out of Google Cardboard. And so the education team at Google said, wow, we think that this would be a pretty incredible way to bring students on field trips that school buses couldn't otherwise take them on. So there's a new project right now called Google Expeditions. And what it does is it brings Google Cardboard into your classroom, and it gives you you and the students learning experiences using Google Cardboard. So this is one of these moonshot ideas where we said, what could we do with this? And in fact, I'm going to be giving a session today in which now, for free, using your phone, you can create content that the students can experience. The students can create content that they could see in Google Cardboard. So it's adding this space for innovation and for these ideas and for us to really think big about the ways that this could really happen in our classroom. In fact, Google Cardboard not only was just a draw-dropping thing for just these kids up here, they experienced the roller coaster, which doesn't have a huge educational content unless maybe you're doing the physics of the roller coaster or things. And was it fun? Yeah, it was really fun. Well, my friend Ashley had quite a fun time experiencing the roller coaster in Google Cardboard as well. She's a good friend of mine, and she's been showing up to a lot of people. We now very endearingly call her Cardboard Ashley. So anyways, when we talk about these engaging things and these ways for innovation, my question right now that I'm exploring is, what do we do with it? What do we do with this for education? How can we use this for real-life content, exploring? How can we collaborate with this? There's so many fun ideas in this network of people that are together that are exploring what a moonshot, how can we think big about using this kind of technology in our classroom? It's part of the fun. It's part of the giants, wizards, and elves, the playfulness of what we get to do and be a part of. I just recently got back from a trip in which, as I was there, the Google Street View app on your phone updated so that I can create content that can be viewed in Google Cardboard. It's an incredible idea. The students that I was working with on this summit actually started doing the 3D photospheres of their school, and they were all in charge of sort of the initiative of sharing their school story outside of their school walls, and they started saying that they might even start sending a Google Cardboard to the people that are exploring the school so that they could go on to Google Street View and just experience the school and take a look around. So the ideas that are coming from this is the fun part of the playing. So we have to create moonshots. We have to have that space for innovation so that we can do that and be a part of creating that and thinking big together. And the last part is that we have to get going, right? We have to have a bias towards action. If you never bought a phone because you knew that that next phone was coming out, you'd never have a phone, right? So you're gonna have to have a bias towards action. We have to start somewhere. I just bought this new awesome 3D camera that I'm gonna show in my Google Cardboard session, and I bought it like seriously 2 months ago, and now it's not the one that goes with that Google Street View update, and it's so disappointing, but I've learned so much by having that camera with me that it makes me that much more excited about what's possible with the next round. And so we have to have a bias towards action. How the heck do we do it though, right? Where do we start? And so here, in this next video, I want to show you this guy. I think it's perfect. He says, I have a process. I commit, and then I figure out how in the heck I'm going to do it.
I don't believe that you can fix someone. That was never my goal here. Daniel was 14 when the bomb hit. Hiding behind a tree saved his life. But after losing both of his arms, he said he wished it hadn't. He had lived 2 years without arms. Daniel is just one of over 50,000 amputees left in the wake of the bloodiest war Africa has ever known. The plan was to go to Sudan and 3D print prosthetic arms for Daniel. But that was just the beginning. We wanted to leave his village with the tools and knowledge of how to create these prosthetics long after we had gone. This is going to be the hand that we work on for Daniel. I still pinch myself the fact that I was able to teach a group of people to print. Many who had never worked with computers before and never seen a 3D printer before, and I taught them how to make arms. That's what technology has the potential to do. I have a process. And the process is you commit, and then you figure out how the heck you're going to do it. The second I saw the story about Daniel, I didn't need to reread it. When you look at a picture of a boy with bandaged stump arms, I mean, what do? Do you just, oh, that's too bad, close the computer and go to bed? What do? You can't put the pieces back together in someone else's life. But maybe if you print them in new pieces, they'll start to learn to put them back together themselves.
And that's what we get to do. We get to be in the process of learning the potential that technology has. We're not quite sure where it's going to go. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen. So we really want to have a bias towards action. As I close, I want to introduce you to Olive. Olive was born in Montana, really rural Montana. She didn't have electricity when she was first born. She got around in a carriage and buggy. She lived through the Great Depression. And she has witnessed an incredible amount of change using technology in her lifetime. And so she worked with this company called Wish of a Lifetime, which is an organization that works with senior citizens and grants them wishes at the end of their life of things that they've always wanted to do. And so what did Olive want to do? She wanted to see the future. And so where did she go? They took her to the Googleplex. They took her to the Google headquarters, where Olive got to go in the self-driving car. Olive got to also experience Google Cardboard, and she kept saying, the horse, the horse. It was as if I could touch the horse. And the reality is that she got to see the things that we get to introduce the students to. And I loved reading that story, but this is our opportunity. Our opportunity is to be able to introduce and inspire, to engage the students in using technology in ways that we don't even know what we're going to do with them. And that's the exciting part. That's the adventure. So as we go through today and you learn about new things and tomorrow comes and the kids show up in your classroom, I don't care, just dream it, design it, but really, really with the bias towards action of do it. We really want to make sure that we're doing it. The future is not a multiple choice question anymore. It's a design challenge. And so as you're in your classroom and you're living in beta and it looks a little bit messier than you thought it was, notice the accidents, capture them, right? Collect all the wrong answers, because the wrong answers are the right answer. It's just in search of a different question. So let's ask some different questions. And what we want to do with the digital tools and all the things that we're learning today, whether it be in CrossFit Breakout or whether it be in Google Cardboard dreaming it,
is we really want to engage the students. We want to prioritize the things that we think are valuable and that the students think are valuable. We want to make sure that we have and the students are creating moonshots and that we really have that bias towards action. Thanks you guys so much for letting me share the morning with you, and have a great day of learning.